Hey, welcome, greetings everybody. This is Wesley Pepper. Welcome to the Art Lexcia podcast. This is episode 233. Um, yeah, don't have really much to say other than that. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Oh yeah, I do have something to mention. If you are new to this platform and you haven't already, please smash that like and subscribe button. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And all to the new subscribers, welcome very much. Today we're talking to Masia Sepuru. He's a visual art, not visual artist, an artist in general. Background in theater, poetry, but today we're talking about his solo show at the Polokwane Art Museum titled An Ode to the Township. So, firstly, Masia, good morning, my brother. How are you, man?
Good morning to you too, man. How are you? I'm all right.
Pretty good, pretty good. It's nice and cold this morning,
Yeah,
but I'm pretty good. Yeah, man. Like I mentioned in the intro, you've got a show. It started on the 30th of April, last month.
yeah,
Titled "An Ode to a Township." I was going through
yeah.
some of the images, and some of the just social media feeds and blogs about it. It seemed like a pretty cool opening. But before we get there,
Yeah.
let's just take a little bit of background, man. Just give us a little bit of background about yourself, man. Given that you've worked in multiple genres, yeah, just give us a little bit of background about your artistic journey, and then we'll take it from there.
Um, yeah, for sure. I mean, like as you mentioned, my name is Masia Sepuru. I am a multidisciplinary artist, and I'm sort of like the more I say it, the more it sort of settles in, because it's a very difficult thing to sort of navigate because I'm sort of like see myself as just one dimensional person, which is just storytelling. But I use like multiple mediums to tell those stories, which is like fine art and theater and poetry and performance and music. Those are always like the things that I've always been doing. And
Mm.
the more I do them, the more they sort of flesh out into their own little walls, their own little things that they actually need for me to acknowledge them as disciplinaries, in that way. I am born and raised in Limpopo, Mlichi Mahofe. It's like a small town, just maybe like 20 minutes outside of Polokwane. My whole life is like from there, and the stories that I tell, either in poetry, in theater, even in fine art, sort of speak about that place. It's one of those
Mm.
places where early on people sort of migrated from the villages to sort of move closer to the city. That's why we're not that far,
Sure.
but not so close that we're in the what you'd call like the townships. You know what I mean? I think um when it started, it was like the early days quarters, like when it sort of started, like shacks everywhere. If you imagine like that type of places, but now it has since developed because of like it's been like years, so there's like its own houses. But in its inception, it was just people just finding space, building with whatever, and that's sort of like the world that I was born in. And I can call it a privilege now, but looking back in its reality, it was like what you would I mean what it was actually was just poverty, really, but I have the privilege as a storyteller to see that town develop and grow as big as it has gotten. You know what I mean? I've seen it before electricity, before ESCOM. Even now, I think that we still not have water. We don't have tarred roads, but the houses that are there are built by people that are there. There's very little government intervention, except maybe for the ESCOM. But beyond that, there's very little government intervention. But if you go to those sort of towns, then there's many of those towns in the country. But if you go to that sort of town, you're like, people have built houses, you know what I mean? They are far from how they started. And that's sort of like the surrounding that I was born and raised in. And yeah, it was an incredible upbringing. It was a very intense upbringing, but only in retrospect, because when you are within the thing itself, you don't sort of like notice it because everybody's going through it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
I'm struggling to look back in my life, especially like in those times with like uh um with pain or with like trauma, because even though there was on like looking outside in, there was a lot of it. Whilst you're in it, it's very difficult to point it out because we were kids, right? We were too preoccupied with just being kids and growing up and uh making whatever with the little that we had. And because
Yeah.
that's what everybody was doing, you struggle to pick up that there's an actual issue here, right? And um again, we were like in Polokwane, we're like the northeast, as far north in the country as you can go. Um, we're very, 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 not even very few. We had no white people or any other races in where I was raised. It was just like black people. So the black experience was sort of amplified, right? And the things that we were only suffering like the symptoms of the system rather than the system itself, if that sort of makes sense. You know what I mean? The system,
It does make it.
the symptoms of the, yeah, the symptoms of apartheid, the symptoms of all of those things. We suffer the symptoms and not like face it head on. So yeah, so like my upbringing is very different. So when I was sort of went to varsity and it got introduced to multiple races, multiple classes, we're very important to talk about class. But when I was introduced to multiple classes, it was only when I looked back, I was like, whoa, then we had a problem. We had problems growing up because these people seem to have a different upbringing than, from me.
Yeah.
And I think that's also when I started like documenting it, maybe just to myself, uh, the upbringing of my house, because it didn't feel different until I was exposed to other cultures. It's like, oh, that is actually different, right? And it's not only different, but it's also worth documenting. It's also worth talking about. It's also worth like presenting to the world that there is another world. There is another uh, type of South African. We are
Yeah.
not necessarily, I mean, as much as it is a rainbow nation, I think the rainbow-ness of it sort of showed itself, not only in terms of race, but also in class, also in like gender politics, also in
Yeah.
politics as well. So all of those things sort of like, take shape when I went to like, varsity. Um, I always joke like I was the first time I met a white person was in varsity. I was like 19, 20. My entire life I'd never actually had a conversation
Yo.
with one, right? And yeah, so I'd never had like a conversation or like with one. I knew they existed, I know, because but where I'm from,
Yeah, of
there was
course.
none of them. And my politics on race and apartheid were very different from like my black peers who had gone to school with like whiteness and who had experienced it, right? Who had know about like racial prejudice, who knows about like apartheid, who knows about not knows about it but experienced it. I had never really sort of encountered it in that way. Like I said, we're just suffering the symptoms of that thing, not necessarily it heads on. So my excitement to be around other races, Indian people, colored people, white people, other types of black people, was quickly dimmed by this reality because I would listen to in my black classmates and their reality of like growing up and
Mm,
how it sort of like didn't match up with how I was raised as well.
mm,
And my sort of that excitement to be in the same class with other races was quickly dimmed by this reality of the history of our country. And not only that, it was also like the first time I also like experienced racism, which it doesn't hit you the same as someone who's
yeah.
been around it very long. For me, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's sort of coupled with the ignorance of it all. So some
Yeah.
things you just take them as either someone being rude or someone being
Yeah.
unpleasant.
Yeah.
You hardly associate it with like racism. It's just like, oh, this is a very
Yeah.
unpleasant white person. Anyway, I'm gonna talk to the other white people, and people are like, no, 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 that was actually racism. That wasn't necessarily like them being an unpleasant individual. That was just them being a racist. Oh, I was like, oh
Racist.
shit. Oh, okay, cool. So yeah. So it took a while for me to adjust to sort of those things, but also it
Mm,
gave me an allowance to stay longer in those sort of circles to ask very important questions that my peers, or at least my other black classmates did not necessarily have the patience for because they had been
mm,
around it for too long. So I at least have
Yeah.
the patience to sit and listen and sort of like dismantle um actually relevant questions. And yeah, so I know I took a very long tangent on like just tell us about your background, but my hopper really my hopper really sort of like started to blossom up into this a person who grew up in once what it was sort of like a squatter that transformed into a town, moved to
Yeah.
you know to Gauteng to and yeah, it's all involved. It's all there
No,
basically.
I get
So
it.
yeah, that
I
yeah
I get it that it's important. It's perspective is important. And you don't
yeah
need to stress a lot. This is the platform for those type of conversations. This is the
for
platform
sure.
for others to talk and to
Yeah
yeah, let me just say to talk. But you mentioned some stuff there that I have to follow up on. I
yeah
think it's fascinating that it almost seems surreal that like you had to wait 20 years before you met a white person. It almost
yeah.
sounds like it's from a book somewhere. Like
Yeah. It sounds surreal, but it's
it
true.
sounds yeah, it
Yeah
does. It does. It sounds hella surreal. Also,
yeah
you mentioned about experiencing racism in your early 20s. I'm sure that was a cultural shock to say the least.
yeah
And how that impacted sort of your politics. So let's actually start there before we get to the art because the politics definitely shape the art. Uh, so
yeah.
how did let's just call it a cultural shock. How did that shape your perspective on South Africa and the world in general? And what road did it lead you down to?
Um, it's sort of like it got me. As I suppose, like that's also like the way I write, the way I paint, in sort of like in question form. So I usually just present my work is also usually is presented in question form. Just
Mm,
asking the relevant questions like why things are the way they are. Where is the humanness of it all? So yeah, that's sort of like it directed me in that path because I think I was also like in a space where I, d- I my I didn't feel offended because I think I when I was like 20, I'm already an adult in a way that I have control of my emotions. I know that their perspective of me has nothing to do with me. It's actually to do with their own prejudice. So it allowed me to like again, like I said, to stay longer in the conversation, to look beyond the prejudice and look, into like the human who's doing sort of these things because I'd understand if someone who's been exposed to this for too long, how it can take a knock on their
absolutely.
own ego.
Yeah.
It can take a knock on
Yeah.
their perspective of themselves. But I didn't have those problems because then I was already old, and my self-esteem was sort of like reinforced by my upbringing. So I didn't take like those things sort of like as offense or anything like that. I just took them as like an opportunity for me to like really study them as people and see also like to show holes in their reasoning, to show holes in their perspective of black people. You know what I mean? Because I was also like an anomaly to them because here's an individual who doesn't seem to be uh bothered by them just being looking different.
Mm,
Because again, a lot of my classmates who in especially in varsity, they already have like a history with them. So before even the interaction happened, there was already like a separation. There was already like a groups. You know what I mean? You can tell like black kids are over there, white kids are over there. For me, it was like,
yeah.
but we're just
Yeah.
people in the same class. What is this separation? It makes no sense to
Yeah.
me. And if I want like, because I was studying art. If I want like a paintbrush, I'd go ask that person. If I want paint, I'd go there. Wherever I was like, I was like this connective bridge between these two worlds. And that made no sense from both for both, people. And also doesn't make sense. It didn't help because like I'm also very light skinned, as you can tell. So a lot of people also sort of mistake me to being colored. And I was like, I'm really not. I didn't hit this much late on people Said I never thought of you as as a black person like that. And also my name doesn't help either because like Masai is such a sort of like a racially ambiguous name. It's like, it makes I make no sense as an individual. Just actually now that I look back at it, right? So it gave me like room and access to these worlds and for me to like listen in. And but what I like about that is that I've always viewed people as like people first, and I sort of interrogated them and myself and other black people as people first. So my work speaks about how, despite the history of like black people and white people and colored people and Indian people, it's very important for us to look at them as people first and see like the race and the history of it all as something that sort of happens to them or happens to us, right? I do believe that some of my white classmates, had they been born black, they would have a black experience, right? It has very
Yeah,
little to do with who they are personally, but
yeah,
it is just a thing that they themselves had no control over, and that's what sort of interests me, and that sort of dictates my work, right? Well, like when I was writing a play on Exodus on addiction, I didn't sort of focus on like this individual is also is it is of he's of a certain race and addicted in that way. But I was dealing with addiction and an individual whoever is addicted to the same, but also not shying away from the history of um, addiction in the country itself, right? You need to like interrogate both worlds in that way. So yeah, that sort of like dictated like my way, and I think it sort of like gave me like it's a privilege for me to have had that a privilege as a writer. I must always sort of like emphasize it's a privilege as a writer to have that pedestal to stand on and look at the world from that
yeah,
perspective, right? All these ambiguities allow me to interrogate the morality of people as opposed to their, um, their history or whatever is attached to them that which they could have done nothing about, like race and gender, and sometimes even class. Some people are born rich, you know what I mean? And it's really difficult to just view them as just these privileged individuals who have a high nose, but like, no, no, no. These people were born rich. There's nothing we can do about that. But let's now deal with them as individuals, as people, and see how that upbringing has influenced them and how the people who are born on the opposite spectrum of wealth, people who are born poor, how did that impact them? But both of them are people. So if you find the
yeah.
commonalities in them being people,
Yeah, I get
then
it.
I think we're on a good track. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. Fascinating stuff there. Which actually leads me completely to the next question. So, you mentioned that you studied, that you went to art school at TUT. What did you major in? What was your
yeah.
what was
I
your
majored.
thing? Was it theater?
It was theater, but it was more of a technical side of theater. So there's this course,
What
or since there
played
was
that?
this course, it's no longer there, called Performing Arts Technology.
Hmm.
And performing arts technology is basically like learning all the technical side of theater, sound,
Oh,
lighting,
yes,
and
yes,
makeup and costume and all of
yes.
those stuff. So that's what I studied in.
Yes,
That's what I
design.
majored in. And I ended up majoring in set design and props and building. So now
Uh,
I really loved the whole journey in what I decided in because with props, I know how to woodwork, welding,
yeah,
upholstery.
yeah.
I know how
Uh,
to make statues. I'm very like hands-on skilled in that department. With set design, I mean with scenic art, I know how to paint. I know how to paint like uh just
yeah, that's
big stuff
interesting. So that
effectively. Yeah, yeah,
that sort of covers most of visual art mediums.
yeah. It
Three-dimensional
does.
work, two
It does.
dimension.
It was a brilliant course. One second, I just
Yeah,
need to charge
yeah.
my phone. There we go. Yeah. Okay, I'm good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was that.
Okay.
It was an incredible course, and I would do it again because, like, for me, it sort of instilled the level of confidence to sort of approach anything with sort of like this, uh, this hubris of saying like, yeah, I can figure that out. Like, I can literally look at any sort of either furniture or structure, and it's like, yeah, yeah, I can probably figure out how to do that because, like, it instilled that level of confidence. But because also like as a set designer, you're constantly in the meetings with directors and writers as they tell you about their shows. You have to read multiple scripts as well. So yeah, again, you're forced to do script analysis. You're forced to do uh, to attend rehearsals. So you're
I
getting
get it.
another level of education by merely being a set designer. And then now I've written numerous plays that got nominated because I was sort of like a fly in a wall.
Mm.
Actually, there was I think when I was in the third year, a lot of younger drama students thought I was like a senior in drama because I spent so much time around drama kids because I was a set
Mm.
designer. And like, oh, you surely study drama. Like, I'm not even in your department. I just like hanging around here because that's sort of my job entails for me to like chill with you guys because I'm a set designer and I like to read scripts and I like to attend rehearsals, and that also influenced my performance as well. So I end up knowing things about performing because I was always influenced and around performers in that way. And then on the other side, on my other half, I was in class doing painting their set. So I'm
Yeah.
familiar with like paint and I'm around technique and I'm around. So
Yeah, I get
I
it.
think it was premium education, I tell you. It was very good education for me. And I think I got like exposed to like four courses for the price of one because again I was exposed to musical theater, opera,
Yeah, that's
music itself,
fascinating.
drama.
Um,
It was great.
I I I I think I'll have to look into that one there and maybe recommend it to a few people because yeah, as you mentioned, it
I
cuts
think they
across
closed it
everything.
now. They closed it.
Oh,
I think they
really?
might bring it back, but they closed it and then they merged it with drama. And also heartbroken because it was premium education. I tell you, the reason I can do multiple things and the reason I am Masai right now is 'cause that course existed, and it really allowed me to uh be in rooms that I could learn numerous things. It was an incredible course. You know what I mean? Painting, I learned from that course. Building, I learned from that course. Performing, writing,
Okay.
all of these things.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
I
mean?
get it.
Had I studied something else, which I actually wanted to study, actually wanted to study film. Yeah, I wanted to study film, but had I studied anything else, I think I would have only become like a master at that one thing. But because of that course, I could study I could actually practice multiple things. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the fascinating things that I can also testify to most African based, not necessarily just African based, but from our context, African based artists, is that we are multiple skilled in multiple different genres. And you are forced to do that in to make a living. So if you're a set designer,
Yeah.
like you say, you can write scripts, you can build this. Even myself as a visual artist, I can do a few other things as well. And there's yeah, we can go
Yeah.
on and on. So that's actually almost a prerequisite for artists. If you want to make a living off of it, you
Yeah.
have to be multiple skilled, and I think that's testament to how a lot of things about, which is also why I like to talk to various artists. It just shows you how how layered our talent is, and how complex our thinking, and how complex and how intricate our creativity is, and how nuanced it is, and how you can focus and take care back. I find that shit fascinating to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but let's move it forward into your into actual professional work because you mentioned that you wrote a few plays, you got a few nominations. I see you worked there at the TX Theater. So which came first? Was it the writing? Was the playwriting first before visual art? And yeah, just
Yes.
explain that journey to us.
I think they started at around the same time, but professionally, uh, yeah, I think they started around the same time. I think they also started around 2019, 2020. But visual art, obviously I was only sort of exposed to my immediate circle.
Mm.
Just selling to like whoever sort of interested around me. And I started to experiment with my style and the canvases were not always black. So that always developed from there. But I think I started mostly as a poet, like professionally, sort of like exposing myself to the public was as a poet. Because there's this spoken word session, live music session called House 83 at the Arts Campus. And we met every Thursday under some tree, and different musicians and poets would just gather and just have a vibe. It's called House
Yeah.
3, and
Yeah.
my contribution
Yeah.
to that space was as a poet. And sort of that also like started to mold my creative journey and my perspective as well. Given that I had experienced this entire week of this very melting pot of a class, and then I get to express my views on it on Thursday
Mm.
at that campus, and then to graduate from that course, you sort of have to have like I think a 3 month internship at a company that sort of deals with that course. So start building also like I was actually like started then professionally. I started doing like building sets. The company that I worked on at the time did some stuff with idols. We did a lot of theater, start building and work and stuff like that. But that was not like my own personal stuff, was in contribution to that company, to
Yeah.
which I'm very grateful for. And that
Yeah.
sort of paid paid the rent. And the more I was on the outside, I was performing as a poet, the more the name caught on with people, and the more I
Yeah.
was known as a poet, as a performer, as a poet, and stuff like that. And actually, was a friend of mine who saw all the poems that I've written and says, if you can combine them, they can actually become a play. And I said, oh, really? I mean, let's try that out. And we did, and we created like my first play, called It's All Fame at the South African State Theatre. It was like a combination of poems. And we just,
Mm.
found a thread to make a story about them. And I saw like, oh, there's potential for me to become a playwright, with this thing. And then around the same time, I started painting in my own private space, figuring out a style, figuring out ways I could like express. So they all started at the same time in that way: poetry, script
Yeah, I get it.
writing, and then fine art. And then
Mm.
the more I did them, the more they sort of started growing roots. So they
Yeah.
sort of started growing downwards before they grew upwards. So
Mm.
yeah. So they started at the same time, and obviously COVID really it was one of those times where uh I think a lot of us, we sat with ourselves, and especially as a creative, like, do I really want to do this as a career? Because evidently, when the world, turns like 180, we are the first to like be ignored, and everybody sort of go back into their own rooms, and our careers are always in danger. Is this the thing that I want to do? Should another COVID come in the future? Am I like, it was a difficult time for all of us as creatives to really decide if this is the thing. And a lot of us fell off during that time. A lot of us, ventured back into academia. I saw a lot of people go back to school, go get
Mm.
their masters, go get their uh, doctorates so they can become at least lecturers. You know what I mean? So they can make a living in that way, which I think is a topic for another day. But I think teaching is the calling and not necessarily like a way to get money. But anyway, a lot of
Yeah,
people
teaching is
went
not
into
for
that route
everybody.
because, yeah, teaching is not for everybody, but people saw it as like a thing
Um,
to do, right? Because it
yeah, I
assured
mean,
them
at
some type
at
of
the end of the day,
employment.
people
Yeah.
gotta eat, man. So I get it. I feel
Exactly.
that
I'm not,
uh,
yeah,
yeah,
it
people
is what it,
gotta eat, and I think that it's not, like I said, it's not always for everybody, and
yeah.
that's why you don't always get the best teachers everywhere, because people are always first thinking with their stomach as opposed to with their head.
For sure. And I'm not criticizing them. I saw people did whatever they had
Yeah,
to do, and I'm not
yeah,
saying that my decisions were better. I took huge risks to get where I am.
yeah. It is a
And
huge
they were
risk.
risks. I wasn't the only one who took those risks. Some people took the same risk and unfortunately it didn't work out for them. So I'm not saying that, oh, my making the decisions were any worse or better than anyone's. I think we sometimes, especially in the world, we're just thrown in like a pair of dice, and you just land wherever you land, and you have to do with whatever you have with that situation. And I'm sure some people, became better teachers because of that experience.
Yeah,
But for me, it was when I had to like reinforce this idea of becoming a creative and a storyteller. And I've had to insist, you know what I mean, of becoming a playwright, becoming a fine artist. And I was very grateful because of my immediate circle. I have to like very create an emphasis on that, that I could only exist as an artist because the people around me also saw potential in me, and they saw the potential of
Yeah.
the work, and
Yeah,
some of
that's
them
important.
purchased the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, they purchased the work early on. And people have this great challenge to see more about you than you can see yourself. People have
Yeah.
the ability to see the foresight before you do, right? There's some people who
Yeah.
collected art, and I'm very grateful for them, and I would like to do something for them in the future once the name has, caught on with the rest of the world. I'd like to actually not necessarily buy it back, but showcase my early work. And then if someone buys it, will buy it at a price that uh I would charge right now, and all the proceeds would go back to the early collectors, because we do this thing where tell people like art is a an investment, da, 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 but people hardly ever see that investment, especially now, unless like in 50 years I die and maybe that accumulates some
Yeah,
money. We never know.
that's a
And yeah,
that's a very interesting topic that is it's actually a separate topic. I should actually explore that more on this platform in terms of
yeah,
like art investment and how does it grow and how does it work and so
exactly.
on. Because
Yeah,
to be honest, I've been doing art my whole life and I don't even know. I can just assume. I just know that I know there's a formula. Anyway, I don't want to get it too much because I don't know. I Like I said, I don't know too much of it. But actually get
I
into
don't I
your
don't know either. Yeah,
let's
no,
actually
go
get
on,
into
go on.
your show the ode to the Township that's at the Polokwane Art Museum.
Yeah,
So like you mentioned, you started off, with poetry that became a play, and you started painting in
yes,
your in the spare time. One of just a few things that I noticed on some of your paintings. The most striking thing is that there's the majority of a black background, so that comes through
yeah,
pretty strong. Most of them are township scenes, everyday life, kids playing and
yes,
so forth. Um, and
yeah.
sometimes the faces are blacked out. So yeah, just explain to us your philosophy behind that, man. Why the black background? Why those specific
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
scenes?
yeah, yeah.
And what are you
I think
trying to say?
um initially the backgrounds were just black. I was just blank rather, and they were just like whatever color I could put on. Because the point wasn't the background, the point was the subject. I wanted to
Okay.
like interrogate. I wanted to see if I could paint black people without painting them. I wanted to see
I
if I
get
not
it.
necessarily black
I
people, but I
get it.
wanted to see if I could paint like people from where I'm from without having to like paint them, such that when a viewer looks at them, they know what they're looking at. And that has always been the
Get
case.
it.
Like there's nothing like I didn't paint the skin, I didn't paint their faces. But when people look at the art itself, they just immediately know, oh, those are black people. I was like, how
Yeah.
did you know? Because I didn't put any color on them. There's no features. There's no face. There's no skin. But automatically you know it's black people. So I was interested in interrogating that. Like, how did we all know that these are, you know what I mean? Is it how they dress? Is it how they walk? Is it what they're doing? And that's also shows that there's more to in people than what's on top. That's the thing we were talking about earlier about like people are more than their skin color. They are more than their whatever. So literally took away the skin color and I took away the features, but somehow we still know that these people are who I intended to paint. So that was the initial thing. And then I went through multiple colors. The background were initially gray, but again, the philosophy was the same, just really trying to see if I can paint these people so such that you would know that they are who they are without you having access to their features or their skin color. And it's sort of that I went through multiples of them and then I landed on black. And people think, oh, it's black because you're painting black people. I mean, there's part of that. But also from a technical point as an artist, black as a background, black as a black as a background. Wow, it's a tongue twister. Black as a background helps like other colors to stand out. It gives like room for colors to sort of to pop and you to sort of
Yeah.
interrogate art from multiple distances. So it's also like a tech from a technical point, it makes sense for me to make them black. Because I do I deal with a lot of colors. Again, what I found is that the people that are
Yeah, the
painting
colors are
to
very
be
vibrant.
interested in color. Yeah, yeah, if you're gonna paint like stronger people, you're gonna use your entire palette because these people really love
Mm.
color. If you're gonna paint vendor people, you're gonna use the entire palette because they really love color on their look, their traditional wear. And I was like, okay, cool, but let me just use the color that they use the least as the background, and that color was actually black. Odd enough, you know. And it also makes sense that um they happen to be black as well. So it's just like, oh, cool. This makes sense. You know, it was one of those coincidences that just makes sense. But IJB the was to separate the background and make the painting about the subject. Specifically, this was a technical decision.
Yeah,
It was a
I
creative
get it.
decision in that way. But then also, again, you have to allow people to have their own interpretation of the work and how people land on the fact that, oh, it's black because you're painting black people. I'm like, I mean, if that sort of helps to sell the art, for sure. But it is predominantly like a creative decision to make sure that the subject is the point and not the background. And a lot
I
of
get
people
you.
think that, oh, is it because you can't really paint faces? I'm like, I can paint faces. I have a degree in painting faces. I am a scenic artist. So I have like self-portraits of myself. I have pictures, I'm in paintings where I just only paint faces in detail, like in high detail as well. Not necessarily like to prove anything to the critique or to to the skeptics, but also just to remind myself because like painting is sort of like a skill that you have to keep training. So I also have like very detailed pieces, specifically like the new art where I'm painting the toys. I make sure that they're all very realistic leaning, not necessarily like blotchy colors and more yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
hear
But
you.
it's I make sure
I
that
hear
they're
you.
more realistic. But also just to remind myself that oh, you can actually do. Also, it's fun to sit and paint a tin that is metallic in detail. You know what I mean? And that actually looks real. And it's like, oh, that is actually fantastic because I do have that education, right? As a set designer, as a scenic painter, we only not only, but we always almost deal with realism, to which I'm very skilled at. But and we also deal with very large pieces as well, which I'm also very
I
skilled at.
noticed. I
So I get
noticed
to
the
show,
size. I noticed
yeah, 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 for
the
sure.
size over there, and I actually want to comment on that. Because
Yeah,
one of the as you explaining, I sort of get a sense of. I know that with most theaters stages are black. Um, and
yeah,
maybe that has also sort of influenced the generic black background. And working on it
hey,
with that those
if
vibrant
it
colors, it
if
usually
if
sticks
it
out.
if it if, if it helps to
Um,
sell the art, yes, stage was the influence as well.
does if
But
you look
no,
at posters, if you look at posters, for example, I'm trying to think of an example on top of my head, but I know that if you use yellow, if you have a black background and use yellow, I think also red, but
yeah,
white. I can't remember the combination of the colors, but I know that the text or whatever you're painting really sticks out. And in
yeah,
painting, like very if you use secondary colors, oranges,
yeah,
purples, and so forth, very strong yellows. It's it it
yeah,
jumps out at the viewer, and also like you mentioned, the
for
size
sure.
of the artwork. That's also an interesting thing about how various artists vary their size of the actual art. I mean, I know some artists that
Yeah,
paint huge, some also paint very tiny. I guess that just depends on what market who's your
yeah,
target
for
market.
sure.
Um, so there's actually let me just there's another theme that I noticed that I wanna ask you about. Is that and I mean you mentioned some of the toys. I saw a one of those makeshift soccer balls. And you mentioned that you're painting it in
Yeah,
very deep with detailed. And there's also a
Yeah,
draadkarretjie there. Just a point on draadkarretjies, and that for my English viewers, that's what is it? A wire car? I think that's the English word.
for sure.
Where you
Yeah,
build a car
yeah,
out of wire, but in South Africa, I say on draadkarretjie. Um, and
yeah,
I mean those I mean that takes a level of skill of and of talent because not everybody can do it. And
for
you
sure. Yeah,
get
yeah.
some kids, I know from speaking from myself here, there were some kids who were pretty skilled in that where they'll be able to do like
Yeah,
even detail on the car,
I
like car
wasn't.
handles and
I was
everything.
I was not I was not detail. I was not very, that was one of the things I was very bad at. Because it has a lot to do with straight lines and technical, and it was more engineering than it was art making those cars, and I was very bad at it. I was very bad at making those cars. I think there was one that I made that I was very proud of. But just in general, building those cars was such a stress for me because there was some people who were very,
Wire
very
is a
skilled
very
at that.
difficult medium.
Why is it
Wire is
so
not a
difficult,
it's not
man?
a it's
I
not an easy
struggled with
medium.
that. I struggled with that. But yeah, also like painting it was also like it took me back at like how difficult it was to make because even in painting it, it just all those lines have to make sense. All those perspective, like how you paint it, they have to make sense. You know what I mean? It was one of the most technically difficult thing to paint because it was also a technical difficult thing for me to make as well. I really like growing up. I really like making the ball. So that was more fun, like using the plastics
Did
and
you
sort of
actually
shoving it into
physically
another plastic. And
did you
yes,
actually
yes, yes,
physically
yes. I made that.
make the ball and then paint it?
Yes, the ball that was on display is the ball that is also on the canvas because I wanted to like. I usually like I can paint from memory, but sometimes as artists I prefer to paint from
Yeah, you
reference
need
because it's
reference.
just quicker
You
that
need
way.
reference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like in my head, I know that I know how to paint bricks because there's another one which is bricks, which is one of my favorite games to play with bricks. Um, I literally I know how you all know how bricks look, but I have to go out, find bricks, take a picture of them from a specific perspective, how I would want them to paint, and then I had to like paint looking at an actual perspective because you really need like a reference as an artist regardless of you
Yeah, you
whether you
do.
know how to paint or
You
not.
do.
I think a reference just
Yeah, that's
helps
very important.
with yeah, yeah, it's very important. So moving with the ball, I made I had to physically make the ball itself so that I could paint. The one that I didn't necessarily like use, I used multiple references with the wire car. You know what I mean? So that was one I used multiple reference because it was one of like those technically difficult ones, and also the type of cans that we use. All of the
Yeah.
that I needed to for it to stay true to the actual thing. And there are still toys that I'm contemplating to paint as well because I put it out there, excuse me, and I let other people sort of have like a go at it, like what other things that they play with growing up, and let's see if they can make it on the canvas as well. People have made multiple suggestions, and also you can make a suggestion as well. So I will then consider, I think maybe three, four more of those.
I do have a suggestion,
Uh,
or it's a question. It's a question
yeah,
slash suggestion. Are the toys part of
yeah.
of the show? The ball and so forth. Are they part of the show as an installation?
Yeah, 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 yeah. For sure, they are. They are. They are also part of that collection. I mean, there's all day, right? I'm sort of like, um, what I'm doing, like, is you can't help that one topic that you deal with bleeds into another topic. Like when I was painting, like there's one with the boy pushing the actual car, and
Yeah, I
he's
saw that
running
one.
home, and he has a sack of bread in his hand, and
Yeah,
another
it's
question that
always
came
that.
up is who is it running? Who is exactly? Who is he running towards? And and where are the parents? And by asking
Yeah,
that question what happened is that I started painting the collection called Bumatali Bumareya, which documents the mothers and the maids of South Africa, because my grandma was a maid when I was raised by her, and she was a maid growing up, and painting her bleeds into another sort of thing. So they all bleed into each other in that
yeah,
way,
I hear
such that
you.
it's actually very difficult for me to like name. the collection because it's multiple collection within a collection. The toys goes into the kids playing goes into their parents goes into their husband.
So it's
Like it's
basically
such, yeah,
so the show, if I must summarize it in like a tweet or a short version, is
yeah,
basically your life that you conceptualized, various highlights in your life that had a profound impact on you today, that you sort of just conceptualized into a painting using all of your
yeah,
influences, coming through the theater stages and then poetry stages, mediums
yeah,
that you
for
work with,
sure.
just put it all on canvas. That's
It's
dope. That's dope. Um,
it's also it
this
was very
actually,
important. It's also very important for me. As I document, let's just one last point. As I document these things, I don't want to document them. I mean, not necessarily I don't want to, but as I document them, they are usually just about looking celebration, right? At them with sort of this fondness. There is this urge or like this itch to paint them like from like a perspective where I actually documented the trauma of it all, the poverty of it all, the struggle of it all. But then that is not necessarily what I want to like document. Like I want to document these things from a perspective of like celebration and nostalgia, and because at the time that's how they felt. They didn't feel necessarily like lack.
yeah,
You know what I mean? They felt like an
I
opportunity
hear
for
you.
us to create something. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's very important for me to highlight that I'm not painting from like trying to like look at us, boohoo, we had it bad, but mostly like look at us, we
Yeah,
did
yeah.
the
You're
best
not trying
we
to
can with what we
celebrate.
had. Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. And I think that's a very important point because that's something I'm also incredibly critical of about this poverty porn
Yeah.
that black artists are sort of
Yes,
forced
yes, yes,
into
yes.
creating. You always got to write about how poor shit was, how tough it was, and
Yeah,
unfortunately,
for
the
sure.
the industry says that's the only way to make money. I hate that shit. Personally, I hate that shit.
Actually,
Somebody coming from a
it's
from a
it's
township might not see poverty to
yeah,
them. They might see spirituality. They might see a form of culture. I hate that shit.
yeah.
But anyway, you were saying?
I it's very uncomfortable, man, to like see it as a way of people to present themselves to the world as these uh individuals who can only create from trauma or create about trauma. I mean, I explore all of those things in a way that we can sit and have a conversation about them, right? But like I said, I keep repeating myself like a broken clock. These are people, first, and people have multiple experiences. Like we had amazing Sundays, man. We had amazing church days. We had amazing dancing and food and laughter and the toys, and that's something to like talk about. And not again shying away from the difficulties of it all, but to document it in its entirety, right? And yeah, you get to see that these were more than people. And you're right, people see that as like a way to just sell. But what I've also found is that there's a lot of young creatives, young collectors who share this sentiment, who want these pieces in their homes, in their workspaces, who wants to start collecting, and who also understand like, oh, this actually resonates very great with me. So it's becoming a lot not easier, but it is becoming more common for our type of art to also sell, because it's honest and it's not hoping to trigger something from from anyone. Yeah,
Fascinating stuff, my brother. Sepai Sepuru. Thank you, my brother. Let's actually wrap it up there, man. So I mean, I'm sure my viewers would love to see some of your work. Can you give us
yeah.
like some of your social media pages or websites, whatever? Do you have any, where we can find your work? Where can Oh shit, sorry, I just got distracted. I just got a message. A
Yeah,
bullshit message.
yeah.
Sorry for that. Um
No, it's all right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
can you just give us some of your social media handles and so forth, man?
and all the social medias really, if you just search Masai Sepuru, Masai, and then Sepuru, I should be the first one to pop. If you wanted all of it, you can just also just search on Google, just search Masia Sepuru, and everything should start pop there, and you'll find my Instagram, my Facebook, my whatever. Yeah, it's all there. It's sort of like I can't believe I've had to a point in my life where I could just say, yeah, just Google me. But effectively, that's where I am. You can just search it on Google and everything will pop. My bios, my everything.
So
Really. And if interested in buying the art, on
yeah,
Instagram, the link in bio should take you to my link tree, and you get to see the catalog there. And you can have a conversation. We can start purchasing things from there. But yeah, I'm very easy to find if you just search Masai Sepuru on all the platforms.
and
I
your
should be,
and the
yeah, you
show
should
at the
get me there.
and the show at the Polokwane Art Museum. From when to when is it running? And if people are based in Polokwane or that part of the world, yeah, like is the
Yeah,
museum open from 9 to 5 or something like that, and over weekends and that type of
for
thing?
sure.
And are
The
you
media,
having
the museum.
sorry, one more question, and are you having
Yeah, go
walkabouts?
on, go on.
No, I sort of know, are
Yes,
you having any walkabouts where you can interact with people in your work? Can you just explain that one to us?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, the museum is open like normal museums. It's not necessarily open on holidays. I know it was closed
Mm.
for this holiday as well. When it opens like in running normal time, I think from 9 until 5 on weekdays. And you can just walk in. I think it's free. Not I think it's free. I think it is free to just walk in and check out the art. We will be having some programs and walkabouts that should come out. We're making officializing the poster. We can have workshops, acting workshops, writing workshops, poetry workshops that we are putting together for the date should be released soon. And I think me and you might have another conversation in coming weeks while I'm actually in the museum
Yeah,
itself. And
yeah.
yeah, more details will come if they follow me on social media for sure.
Yeah, man. Actually, that's actually a very good point. So I wanted to end off with that. Yeah, man. I'll drop you a text in next week. And we can see if we can sort of coordinate that, and maybe even try to do it live. I definitely wanna do
For
more of those
sure,
type
for
of
sure, for sure.
I would definitely want to do some those type of experiment with those type of formats. But I will communicate that with you in next week. But let's wrap it up there, Miss Simon. This was fresh. Um, I still can't get over that you had to wait 20 years to see a white person. I wonder if that was
Yeah,
me, how would it have affected my how would it have impacted me? And I thought it was fascinating how you
yeah,
sort of coming out of that experience, how you saw all your peers and contemporaries around that, and how you sort of placed yourself in that, and also really fresh. And I'm glad you highlighted also the fact that the art is not a celebration of poverty. It's not poverty porn. Like I mentioned, I'm highly critical on that.
yeah, 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 for sure.
I think African people are more and more layered and way more than just our poverty doesn't define us, and I don't even like that term. I find it also quite. But anyway, I'm talking about what I don't like. I'm gonna end it up there. Just to all my viewers, if you got this far, and you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button. I'll appreciate it. Masai Sepuru, I thank you, lads, for coming through, my brother. I will add all your social media handles and so forth in the description box below. And I'll also, I'll besides the long format, I'll cut it up in shorts, which I'll publish. I usually try to do it a few days later. Um, but I'm actually running. I've actually got another episode I need to work on later this afternoon. So I'll put out your episode in next week. Towards mid next week, say Wednesday ish. But I'll
Okay,
communicate that with you
for
as
sure.
well. And then we'll communicate with regards to you being at in the Polokwane Museum, and I would definitely like to do something like that too. But thanks for coming through, my brother, man. You fascinating story. And all the best with the show. I hope you sell everything.
Thank you so much. I hope I sell everything. I hope we sell. But yeah, yeah. But I think the point is also for people to witness and experience the art as well. It's very, very important for me because it's about them. I took it home because you know what I mean. It was very important for me for it to get there. So obviously, we want to sell everything, but beyond that, I would like for people to also just come and experience their life in art form.
I appreciate that, my king, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll be in touch via WhatsApp. Yeah. Salute.
All right, cheers. Salute.
One love, one love, one love, one love, king.